Let's now shift our attention to what is unfolding in Russia, where the head of the Wagner mercenary group has once again slammed the Russian government. And this time, the Wagner chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, has lambasted the Russian elite. He has warned that a casual attitude by the Russian elite can actually result in a revolution similar to what Russia witnessed in 1917. Now, Prigozhin, in fact, gave this warning on Wednesday, saying that Russia is in danger of getting into turmoil, more turmoil. And the Wagner chief has further claimed that the relatives of the elite who are having the time of their lives at this moment, while the common people were losing their lives fighting for Mother Russia in Ukraine, he said that this time is not going to last long. He's also complained that his forces have lost more than 20,000 fighters in the battle for Bakhmut, adding that if this trend were to continue, then Moscow will see a revolution similar to what it witnessed in 1917 when Russian Empire was losing its troops while fighting the First World War.
Этого деда, он разорванный в клочья, там куски с землей, мясо лежат. А гаденыш в Арабских Эмиратах, он попкой крутит. И это раздвоение, оно все, чем может закончиться, это как в 17 году революции, когда сначала солдаты встанут, а после этого их близкие встанут. И напрасно думать, что их сотни, их сейчас десятки тысяч. Родственников убитых наверняка будут сотни тысяч. Мы от этого никуда не денемся.
Now, his remarks were directed towards the defense minister's daughter and her husband. He's also accused the defense minister Sergei Shoigu's daughter Ksenia Shoigu and her husband Alexei Stalarov of spending illicit funds on and leading a luxury life. He said, and I quote him here, "The children of the elite smear themselves with creams and show off on the internet, while ordinary people's children come home in zinc coffins, torn apart in pieces." Now, Shoigu's son-in-law is a fitness model and has got a large fan following on his Instagram account. The account has got several videos of him and his wife living a very cozy life. And Prigozhin has said that this threat can only be averted if the Russian elite stepped onto the battlefield. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of why the mercenary chief, in fact, is making the statement that he's been making over the course of the last few weeks, we're being joined in by Mr. Glenn Diesen, who's a professor of international relations at the University of Southeastern Norway. He's joining us live from Oslo in Norway. Professor Diesen, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us here on WION. And let me begin by asking you this. Now, what the Wagner mercenary chief is saying is that if the elite in Russia do not listen to what he and his mercenary soldiers are going through, to their plight, then Russia could in fact experience a similar kind of revolution that it did back in 1917. Is there some substance to what he's saying, or is this just one disgruntled mercenary chief who's speaking out against the Kremlin?
It could be that he's disgruntled. I mean, it's worth looking at his motivations. He's been quite critical that the elites have been less willing to make sacrifices. He's arguing that Russia needs to mobilize more and prepare its economy and people for long-term conflict, and also be more willing to escalate in response to NATO escalation. It could be this, or he could simply be pursuing a political career. It should nonetheless be noted that Prigozhin has previously made statements which appear to be false. Case in point, he recently argued that the Wagnerists lacked ammunition in the final month of the Battle of Bakhmut, but then there was no indications that this was true. If anything, we heard from the Ukrainians that the Wagnerists were using more artillery and shelling than ever before. So some speculated this was to draw the Ukrainians into a fight. Again, I don't know, and I guess we're not supposed to know, and this is part of the fog of war in which you spread certain uncertainty both about your own capabilities but also the adversaries. So that's Absolutely. Why it's difficult to say anything with complete certainty, but I think it's important to look at his motivations rather than what he actually is saying.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, in a war, you'd expect that everyone, of course, pulls in the same direction, and there is no sort of, pulling in different directions by different leaders within one nation. With that being said, and also considering the manner in which Vladimir Putin has in fact led Russia in the last 2 decades, where he's got complete control over the information that is disseminated within his own nation. Are you surprised that the Wagner chief is being allowed to say all of this and still he continues to remain free?
No, well, yes, this is unusual in among the military ranks. But again, this is why it's a bit of a different situation as well, because it's not in the military; it's a private military organization, and for this reason, it doesn't have the same discipline and command structure as the army usually would have. However, it's been proven that the Wagners are, good at fighting, and so for this reason, it's I guess they put up with it more than they otherwise would have done. But regarding Putin, though, it has to be pointed out, because often, at least here in the West, he's portrayed as being, one of the hawkish elements in Russia. It's not just Prigozhin who's been very critical of Putin. The main criticism of Putin over the past 8 years or 9 years has come really from the more hawkish elements, because they've seen Putin as being too weak. That is, after 2014, when the West toppled the government in Kyiv, they argued we should have gone and taken Donbass then, because they argued the West isn't sincere in their efforts to restore relations. So long story short, in Russia there's many who've seen Putin as being too weak, and now they're paying the price for it.
Right.
So these voices resonate with many.
Absolutely. My final question to you, Professor Diesen, is this: how badly do you think have the Western sanctions affected the common people in Russia? The Russian elite, of course, do not seem to be much affected because of the sanctions. They're, of course, not able to travel to the Western nations. But the common people, how badly have they been affected?
Well, sanctions are taking a toll, but the Russian economy is now looking to grow, and by comparison, the German economy has gone into a recession. I think it's important to see that the Russians consider this to be an opportunity, or to intensify a painful reform of the economy, to transition the economy from being excessively reliant on Europe and towards looking more towards the East, to China, India, and Eastern powers. This is why it's important to note that when we toppled the government in Ukraine in 2014, this was a tremendous shock in Russia. It ended 300 years of a Western-centric foreign policy, and Russia has since been shifting its economy to the East. So this is part of this process. So it's going to come with economic pain, but I guess the light at the end of the tunnel would be that in the future they will not have the same economic dependence on countries which are openly hostile to them. So right. I think that this is, therefore, many perceive it to be a price they're willing to pay.
All right, very interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Diesen, for joining us from Oslo in Norway and getting us all those insights there.
My pleasure.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.